Hi class, so this is going to be the start of our math lesson. This is going to be our first math video, so we're going to try it and see, and hopefully it all works out. So today we're going to do lesson 6-3, and so first off, go and get your math journal and open up to page 195. I'm going to wait a second, and if you need to, pause the video for a second, but that's page 195. Alright, so go ahead and look at the paper that I'm writing on. So first off, we're going to do a little test problem, a little example. This is not on the page, so just follow along. This is not where you can see it. So a little example question is, we are going to be looking at division. So it says solving division problems. So if we have a story problem that says that there's going to be a student assembly, and each table can fit 6 students. There will be 78 students at the assembly. So we have 78 students, and each table can seat, so that means how many people can sit at each table? 6. So we have 78 students and only 6 can sit at a table. So we're going to try to figure out how many tables we will need. So we've worked in class on different ways to do division, and we've looked at ways to solve this problem, and today we're going to talk about a different way. But first off, there's multiple different ways we can write this equation. So this is the facts of our story. So if we have 78 divided by 6 equals, we have to put our unknown, so we can put T for table. So this would be one way to write that equation. So 78 divided by 6 equals T. We could also write it as 78 divided by 6 and solve it like we did in class. So first off, remember we have dangerous monkeys swipe bananas randomly. Okay? So we have divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and repeat. Okay, so remember, dangerous monkeys swipe bananas randomly. So first we're going to divide. So how many times can 6 go into 7? It can go in 1 time. Now we multiply. 1 times 6 equals 6. So now we're going to subtract. 7 minus 6 is 1. Now we have to bring down. So I draw my little arrow and I bring down. Now I'm looking to see how many times 6 goes into 18. That's a little hard to read, but that's an 18. 6 goes into 18 3 times. 3 times 6 is 18. So now we subtract. 18 minus 18 is 0. So my answer is going to be 13 tables. That is how many tables we would need. So this is a sample division problem. And so now I want you guys to look at page 195, and I want you guys to look at our first division problem. So our first division problem says, Kyle can fit 3 pencils in a pencil case. He has 42 pencils. How many pencil cases does he need? So with the way that we are looking at this problem right now, we are looking at this in groups of 3. So in case we didn't know what 3 times what would make 42, that is why we are breaking it down. So first off, it gives us our groupings, okay? So I'm going to copy it over here like I usually do on our whiteboard in class. So for number 1, our first grouping that we have, it says 5 groups of 3s. Okay? Another way that what this is saying is 5 times 3. It being in that parentheses or those little brackets is another way of saying 5 times 3. And we know what that is. That is 15. Then we have 6 groups of 3, or 6 times 3, and that equals 18. Now we have 7 groups of 3, and that equals 21. I want you guys to take a second, and I want you guys to figure out some of these for a moment. So I want you to pause the video, and then when you come back, after you've solved number 1, just fill out until you get to 15 times 3, and then hit play again, okay? All right, so hopefully you did all those multiplication facts, and we can go over the rest of them together. So we have 8 times 3, and that equaled 24. Then we have 9 times 3, and that equals 27. We have 10 times 3, and that equals 30. Then we have 11 times 3, and that equals 33. We have 12 times 3, and that equals 36. We have 13 times 3, and that equals 39. We have 14 times 3, and that equals 42. And then we have 15 times 3, and that equals 45. So they gave us a wide range to look at, and it's just us testing our knowledge on our facts and us looking at division in a different way. So first off, what it's asking us to do on that next line right here, it says number model with unknown. Make sure you all see that, with the unknown. Sometimes we forget to put that unknown. So my problem here would be, for my equation, I would say 42 divided by 3 equals, my unknown I would probably put P for pencil case. Okay? So you could put a different unknown, but remember, question marks are not unknowns. We do not put a question mark as our unknown. I know some of you like to do that. It has to be a letter. So now it says, what is the answer? Well, let's look in our list. I know you guys have 3 columns, but let's just look at this. So where did we see in our list that it equaled 14? Yep, 14 times 3 equals 42. So if we know that 14 times 3 equals 42, we're doing backwards multiplication in a way by looking at it in a division problem. That means for 42 pencils in 3 cases, or 3 in a case, we would have 14 cases. So that means P equals 14. So where it says answer blank pencil cases, that is where you need to put 14. Right here, you would put 14. So now it says number model with answer. So to do the number model with the answer, I would write my same equation, 42 divided by 3, but instead of putting equals P, I'll put equals 14. This is what they want on that bottom line. So this whole section is our work for number 1 on that problem. I want you guys to take a minute and practice and try number 2. So pause the video, try number 2, and then we'll regroup and try it together. All right, so hopefully you all tried number 2. So it says, Renee is saving stamps in a book. She can place 5 stamps on a page. She has 80 stamps. How many pages does she need? So again, this is our division problem. So first off, it's wanting us to just practice it with looking at it as a backwards multiplication problem. So if we look, it says, remember when it has 10 and then in the brackets is a 5, that is saying 10 times 5. So 10 times 5 equals 50. Then we have 11 times 5 equals 55. 12 times 5 equals 60. Then we have 13 times 5 equals 65. 14 times 5 equals 70. 15 times 5 equals 75. 16 times 5 equals 80. 17 times 5 equals 85. And 18 times 5 equals 90. Now, some of you might be looking at this and thinking, how am I going to know what 5 times 16 is, or 5 times 17, or even 5 times 14 without having to write it to the side? Well, they let you start at a pretty easy equation. So we had 10 times 5 as our first one. We all know that that is 50. When you multiply anything by 10, you're adding the 0. So then we're just going up 1, which means we're just adding 5 each time. So we should have 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, and 90. So then we can look at that and it's a little simpler if we're not stressed out about how to multiply it or having to write it out to the side. So the next thing on your page says to write a number model with an unknown. Remember, you need that unknown. So hopefully you all wrote something along the lines of 80 divided by 5 equals, we used P last time, but we're going to use it again because it's pages. So P is my unknown. So now I need to look up at my chart and see where did I get that something times 5 equaled 80. Well, I see right here my equation 16 times 5 equals 80. So if I look at it and I say, well, 80 divided by 5 would equal 16. So I know my answer is 16 pages. So then it wants me to rewrite my number model, which is an equation, with the answer. So I would put 80 divided by 5 equals 16. Now, I want you guys to try number 3 on your own. We are not going to check that one together. We are going to go on the back page together again. So I want you to try number 3, and then I want you to get to the back and then click play again. So go. All right, so make sure you're on the back page. So you should be on 196. It should look pretty similar to what we were already looking at. So these are going to be a little different, but we'll talk about them. So it says, in the preschool held a tricycle parade. Trent counted 135 wheels. How many tricycles is that? So first off, you need to know how many wheels are in a tricycle. And a tricycle has 3 wheels. So we have our equation that we need. We are going to get to that in a minute, but we're going to be looking to see how many tricycles equaled 135 wheels. So here is a wider range. So it just gives us 10 times 3, 20 times 3, 30 times 3, 40 times 3, and 50 times 3. Now, we're going up by tens, so you all should be able to do these pretty simple. 3 times 10 is 30. 20 times 3 is 60. 30 times 3 is 90. 40 times 3 is 120. And 50 times 3 is 150. So remember, we're just taking 3 times 3 and adding a 0. 4 times 3 adding a 0. And that's how we get these larger numbers. So even though we filled out our chart, we don't have one that equals 135. Well, let's write our equation and then we'll talk about that. So it says number model with unknown. So my number model would be 135, kind of messed that one up, divided by 3 equals T for tricycle. So we are seeing how many tricycles is 135. We don't have 135 in our chart. We have 120 and we have 150. So we know that it is going to be somewhere between 40, and 50. Okay? So, we know it's not 40, we know it's not 50, but we know 50 is too much. So let's go somewhere in between. So if we're looking in between 40 and 50, we'd be looking at 45. So if we did 45, then